Hey everyone, welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for another edition of YBMcast with Matt and Brian, powered by Game 7 Baseball. The tournament season is in full swing, and there are still some openings in some age brackets for the Game 7 State Championship and the Game 7 World Series that will be held at Chesterfield Athletic Complex. It's a 4-game minimum and a trip to Busch Stadium for the Cardinals and the parade around the track. It's always fun. Skills competition and rings for the victors. Stick around for some fireworks at Chesterfield Valley Athletic Complex following the World Series on Sunday. It's a great 5 days of baseball, and we'll be out at the ballpark with Game 7 with the YBM set on location. Sign up today at game7baseball.com. If you're joining us today for the first time, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that dinger, because that's what we do around here. We hit dingers, get you all your notifications for upcoming episodes of YBMcast. You get to see our pretty faces every Thursday, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Today, as always, we have on the show Kevin Mulder with PBR Missouri, and we're going to be talking some high school baseball. Kevin, how you doing, man?
Doing great, guys. How about yourselves?
I'm doing
good.
well. I think
Good.
he's still asleep.
No, we're good. We're good to go.
Been working hard.
Get her done.
He has. He's
Get her done. We're good.
Traveling
We're all good.
around the world and going all over the place. I'm going to do this. He'll probably punch me, but that's okay. I want to say this
Here we
because Matt, we've been working now together. Gosh, what, 6 months?
Something like
this
that.
way on this. Been talking. Very pleased for Matt Shadow and his group. He's been working. He's with the Midland Baseball Group out of Cincinnati, and he's the president and CEO of that group, and he's doing a lot of great things out there. I want to give him some props. Midland Bandits, you got some stuff going on in Texas and in Florida. Congrats on that, man.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Good luck to you. Hope it all works out.
Thanks.
So that out of the way, I know he never wants me to do that. So that's me, folks. Kevin, we got some players we want to talk about today. We want to spotlight some of these kids. You got some folks you want to talk about here on the show. Give them some love. Some kids that you're watching quite closely, and where they're headed to and how they're doing in this season so far.
Yeah, I guess if we want to spotlight a couple guys early, I guess the top guy right now causing a lot of waves would have to be Nick Moton over at Westminster. He had a big start last night, and this stat line is pretty much the same every time he goes out. It looks like he last night he threw 4 2/3, struck out I think 12, gave up 1 hit, no earned runs, and I think 1 walk. So in front of double-digit scouts, which is pretty typical now for his outing. And I know he's thrown a no-hitter or 2 this year and is pitching at a 0 ERA so far. And Nick's been up to 95 this spring. And he's a guy with 3 or 4 pitches that he throws for strikes and attacks the strike zone and is an Arkansas signee. He'll pitch in that 89, 92 range, and but what's impressive, especially for a young high school guy, is he'll throw some of his best velos towards the end of his outing. So he's capable of sustaining the velo, and has really been impressive for Westminster, who's starting to come on. They didn't start great. That Westminster is a very talented team, but to be brutally honest, they had a poor start to their year, and they've really found themselves kind of in the middle of the season and have come on strong, and that's going to be a force to be reckoned with come postseason time, I believe. But that would be one right off the top. Another
is he
guy,
90? Is he 92 in game?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's 95 in game.
He's been 95 in game.
Wow.
Up to 95. Now he's going to pitch, more in that 90, 92.
Yeah. Okay.
Range, but 2 starts ago he hit 95 on his last pitch.
Jeez.
Nice.
I want to ask this question, and this is something I see a lot of, with some of these guys with the gas, right? We're always looking for velo, and I understand why, but how many of these kids, what's the thought process here? If you got this kid that's, hitting 5 kids, walking 10 kids, and he's throwing 98, what is the thought process when you got that scout?
Well, I'm sure Kevin and I probably agree on one thing, and it's if you're throwing 98, there's not a lot of guys that can throw 98. I mean, how much harder do you need to throw?
Right.
So you say, from my experience with scouts, I'll draft the 98 arm, and we'll teach him how to throw strikes. If he's not throwing strikes, we're taking a risk on a kid throwing 98 that's 18 years old. So that's my experience with some of the pro scouts. Mm-hmm. College scouts probably think almost the same thing. It's like, I mean, how much harder do you want them to throw? It's just, can you control it? And I don't know, what are your thoughts, Kevin?
No, that's dead on. People are always going to give the velocity, especially when you get into the mid to upper 90s, the extra opportunities. And I'm trying to think of the kid's name right now. A great example is the kid from Parkway South. A couple of years back, just made the Royals big league team. And he had all sorts of problems throwing strikes out of high school. And I'm pulling up his name right now. This is just terrible.
Well, there's a kid that's at Miami, Ohio. He's like 101. Mm-hmm. And one of the scouts said, well, I mean, I don't know where we're going to project him. And they're talking about him being a first rounder. I mean, yeah, you're throwing 101 miles per hour and you're throwing strikes. And my thought was that one scout saying, well, where do you project to what? How much more do you want him to project?
Right.
He's throwing 100 miles an hour. So
even if he goes down a few miles an hour, it's still 97, right?
Well, yeah, but you look at some of these guys in the Pro Bowl that are throwing 96, 94, and you look at their profiles from Perfect Game when they were seniors, and they were still throwing 96, 94. The difference is when you get to Pro Bowl, I mean, you're throwing 96 with run, you're moving it, you can spot it. Kyle McClellan, actually name dropping here, but he said something to me that stuck to me. He said when he was in spring training and he was next to Chris Carpenter and they're both throwing pens, coach came up to him and said, you know what the difference between him and you is? And he's like, well, yeah, it's Chris Carpenter. He goes, I can tell him where to go and he can do it 10 out of 10. I tell you where to go, you can do it 5 out of 10. And that's stuck with him, and clearly it's stuck with me because it's true.
There you go.
The Parkway South kid was Jacob Brent, for a name from the past. Big lefty, athletic lefty that was up to 97 in high school. And he had a lot of trouble throwing strikes in high school. And now he's on the big league team for the Kansas City Royals. So there you go. You give a kid like that opportunity, some of them are going to make it, and he found his way. And that's a great story of a local guy, local kid that had, command issues in high school, but found his way and now is a big leaguer. So you give those guys opportunities. Sometimes those big league teams are going to be rewarded heavily. And
Moton's going to be fun to follow because he's at Arkansas. It's not far from us. So I'll be curious.
And he's a strike.
If he can get maybe a couple midweek games here and there, because we just saw Christian Little just threw a midweek game against Louisville earlier in the week. Had a good outing. I mean, you're throwing against Louisville. But I would like Nick Moton's kind of, for me, the same aspect. I want to see if he can pick up a couple midweek games out the gate. And someone's going to say, well, he's throwing 96. You should start on the weekend. Like, yeah, you're at Arkansas. They're the number 1 team in the country for a reason. So
yeah.
Let him mature a little bit.
There's a lot that he needs to learn before you're throwing against guys that are going to be drafted in the top 3-4 rounds.
Yeah.
So, that's right.
Who else you got, man?
Another one that's jumped off the page here recently, or not recently, but has done well, is Mason Breidenbach over at Marquette, left-handed hitter. That's one of the best pure bats in the area, and having a really good year. They got a nice lineup over there, but Mason's hitting 450 with like 8 doubles, a couple triples, and 4 homers this year. And every time I see that guy play, he hits. He never disappoints. It's just a question of whether he's going to get 2 hits that day or 4. So he's been swinging the bat well for Marquette. And then the last guy that I just saw last night, Josh Newell is doing a really good job over at St. Charles West. He's had some monster strikeout games where he's striking out just video game numbers, 14, 15 guys. And yesterday he just threw 4 innings, but that was by design. He didn't give up any runs, allowed 1 hit, I think struck out 5 guys. So he's another one that's, in that he's a junior. He's in the 22 class. Those other 2 I mentioned, Breidenbach's a junior and Nick Moton is a senior, of course. Those guys are 3 guys that have been tearing it up the past couple of weeks that I thought deserved mention.
Now, Newell's uncommitted. Breidenbach's still uncommitted too, right? As far as you know?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
And I saw Newell pitch against St. Charles a couple weeks ago, and it was the same. Threw very well. Command. He threw a complete game against them, and really pitched well, throwing strikes. And that's the big thing right there. He's throwing strikes. He gets guys out, and really liked what I saw with that kid. I like that
something
team.
Something that we touched on before we got on with a lot of these guys that are pitchers. Often they're the best, the number 1 pitcher on the team's often the best athlete on the team, and they're playing, like Newell, for example, plays shortstop for his team. And he's a very nice high school shortstop and super athlete. I think he's a big-time basketball player as well. But truth be told, he's going to be a pitcher at the next level, most likely. So when they start focusing on just pitching, there's going to be some more development there, and I would expect big things out of a kid like him. And there's others. I know Victor Quinn over at Liberty is a center fielder. Austin Young's a shortstop. Nick Moton recently, he was an infielder and just decided to focus on pitching this year. And I think that decision's paid off for him as well.
I love that too, because what you said right there, with Victor, last week I saw him against South. He won the first game on the mound against South. Then he was DHing in the game on Thursday, and hits a home run and a double, and driving in 4 runs, right? And the home run he hit was into the wind, and it wasn't a soft wind. So, and you're right, he's not going to see a bat at the next level. So, enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, Victor's most likely not hitting at Oregon State.
Right.
Especially if you're throwing 96, 97. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I think it goes to that point. You see these kids in high school, and you look at Quinn, looks like a linebacker. Gee, Pete.
Yeah, he's put together. He's strong looking. Newell, I know Newell well. He's worked very hard to get where he's at. I give the kid credit. Not that the other ones haven't, but I think this summer when he's mainly just throwing, his velo will go up. He's another one I think has projectability because this is probably what the first offseason he's really focused on just pitching. Mm-hmm. Granted, he plays basketball, which is great because it helps with athleticism, but this is the first offseason that he said, I'm going to put work in on the mound, specifically on the mound. Right. And he's seen good strides. So
the other kid that we want to kind of throw in that same vein, and we were talking a little bit about him before we started the show, is Austin Young. He just threw another complete game. I think it was 12 Ks for East against St. Charles, and put him in good position for a good seed in that district. That velo, as you were saying, is not quite there, but it's still projectable because he's starting every day, and has that same thought process. Correct?
Yeah, and that's a kid that has shown the velo. We've seen him up to 92 before. The other week when I was out to see him, he topped at 89 and kind of pitched in the mid to upper 80s. But he's playing shortstop, batting fourth for his team. His team's having a great year. I think they set a school record for wins, so congrats to them. That's a big deal. They got some nice freshmen on that team as well. They have kid named Carter Cox. It's a big-time runner. Jackson Carter. Sorry.
Yeah, Jackson Carter.
And then they have a kid named Carter Cox that's a lefty that pitches out of their bullpen. That's going to be a big deal here in the coming years as well. So they got 2 freshmen that play on that team. And then obviously it's led by Austin, and that's a really good group. But Austin can really pitch. He's got a good feel for the curveball and the changeup. Throws a ton of strikes. Comes out of that 6'6" frame of his, and there's a world of upside there. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And want to throw one last kid on here. We're going to give some love. We were talking, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, their baseball player of the week was from the St. Louis Patriots baseball, which is the homeschool group. Jack Shark, he's going to UCM, and you've seen him, haven't you, Kevin?
Yeah. A couple times, and congratulations to the Patriots. They just won the Homeschool World Series, so that's obviously the pinnacle for them. That's a great accomplishment. And Jack's their leadoff hitter. Great athlete, kind of the shortstop, center field type guy. Can do multiple things, but he's got some juice in there. Good runner and really nice player. And I know he had a big week last week down at that Homeschool World Series.
Yeah, 532 he hit.
Is that good?
That's impressive.
That's a good week, man. He had 7 triples, 8 doubles. No, this can't be a week. It says he's.
No, you're right. 32 RBIs.
Yeah.
46
area
runs
leaders
scored,
are. Yeah,
28
he's hit 532, 7 triples, 8 doubles, 32 RBIs, 46 runs, 28 stolen bases. Slugging percentage is .862, and an on base of .621.
Wow. Yeah. Super aggressive on the bases too, not only with the stolen base, but running the bases, going, out of the box for 2 or 3, first to home, etc. He's a fun player to watch, an exciting guy.
And I really think that's
he's going to Central Missouri.
Yeah, and I think that's where Central Missouri does a great job scouting and looking at for kids at this level and that D2, and why they stay at that the top of that D2 level. I think they find some really good players at that level. Because you got, where do you find that kid that, you're talking Division I, how do you stay at the top of that? These are the types of players that I think they really do well recruiting wise.
Agreed 100%. Central Missouri's done that for a long time now, and they do a great job in our state. And we talked, I think, last program about how good the level of baseball is at some of our small non-D1 programs. And just to back that up even more from last week, I know Central Missouri and Lindenwood both are getting to host Division II regionals this year. And WashU's the number 1 D3 team in the country, and I think Webster's number 5. And Crowder came in at number 4 nationally in the JUCO. So a lot to be proud of for our small schools in state.
That's huge.
Yeah, and to kick on that, Central Missouri's been recruiting and been top tier since the late 90s. So, and probably earlier than that.
That's tradition right there. That's when you really start talking about tradition.
It's hard to stay at the top of any level for that long.
Right. I agree.
It doesn't matter if you're a small school, big school, NAIA, D3, D1, pro. It's just the turnover. It's really hard to do that. So kudos to them.
Guys, let's talk a little districts here. We're starting to see some of the district schedules come out. The season's starting to wind down, and if we're looking at Class 6 to start off with here. We've got a couple already scheduled. We've got District 8 in Class 6, which that's on the western side of the state, but one of the better districts, I think, with some really tough teams, and is going to be a difficult district. to win. What do you think, Kevin?
That's an understatement. That this is one of the strongest ones, if not the strongest one in the state. And there's a couple. This is one I'd put up there. Yeah, with Liberty North as the one, and Park Hill as the 2, and Liberty as the 3. Those 2 teams are all in our top 10, and then Staley's the 4, who beat Francis Howell last week. They have one of the best pitchers in the state, Troy Wansing, who's a 6'4" lefty that's 88 to 92 with a really good breaking ball. So he can beat anyone, literally anyone in the state. So a team worthy of making a run at the state championship, he could derail. And Staley, of course, is no stranger to the Final Four themselves. So that's your 4 seed, and Park Hill South is your 5. So that's a really strong. You got 4 teams in that district that could legitimately go to the state Final Four or win. And if you get to that point, you can absolutely win state. So that's a strong district right there.
Kevin, do you know on Staley, do they have, what's their 2 or 3 look like on the mound outside of their 1?
They have some depth. It's certainly not. They don't have another Troy Wansing, but who does? Other than big league teams and SEC teams. So there is a fall off there. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do.
Game 1,
because it's not Park Hill South pushover. They're a good baseball team. They've been on deck in the rankings as well. So, but it will be interesting to see how they. It's always a cat and mouse game, how you run out your rotations and districts, and whether you throw off in game 1 to try to beat a Liberty North in that second game, or whoever it is in the next ball game.
So let's do this. Is it Liberty North coming out of this, or you're looking at maybe Park Hill, or has Staley got the juice to do it?
But this one's going to be. I mean, it could be anyone's game. Park Hill has, in my opinion, the best offense in that. That's led by Carter Jensen, the LSU commit, and has a chance to be a top couple rounder in the draft. And Drew Townsend's their leadoff hitter, who's signed with Missouri State. Jake Danoff is a really good 2022. So they are loaded. And they got a couple other guys that are heading to JUCOs and D2s. So that is a potent offense. So the longer they play, and as our pitching kind of, you get deeper into those pens and rotations, that's a team that's going to get more dangerous every time they play, just because the deeper we go into the pitching, the more that offense is going to be, prevalent. So,
so does one of these teams have the depth at pitching to outlast Park Hill's offense?
I would say yes, but it's going to be interesting. I don't know if I'm prepared to pick right now, because in my opinion, there's 4 teams that could legitimately win that bracket. Out of 8, and whoever comes out of that one, I would expect to see them in Springfield.
Okay, all right, there you go. I'd like to, that just, offense at this level, I think kind of trumps, because I don't know, I haven't seen, so depth of pitching, as you said, the longer you go, can you outlast those guys? And I think that becomes the question. It is. It'll be the question. So,
well, you got to be playing good baseball at the time too.
Right.
I mean, you could be a top 10 team all summer, and then you have lose 2 or 3 at the end, and
everybody goes in the tank.
You just don't. I mean, you don't know. I mean, hitting's very contagious. That's the problem. I mean, it normally comes down to who do you have on the mound. Like your pitching depth is huge to make a run in any tournament, whether it's a summer tournament, a high school tournament. because you could look at pro baseball. You score 10 runs one day, and the next day they don't score any. And as a viewer, you're like, you scored 10 runs yesterday. Well, you could say the same for Park Hill.
Right.
They can score 10, and then let's say Staley gets to the finals of this district against him, and they're in Game 3, and Staley's throwing a lefty thumber, and they can't hit him.
Right.
Like, well, you scored 30 runs your first 2 games, and now you can't score any. It's the game. That's what makes it fun.
That's baseball. I'm of the Tommy Lasorda school, pitching and defense, baby. There you go.
Pitching.
And hit a home run once in a while.
Definitely pitching.
So, District 4, Class 6, we've got the local guys, the old number 1 there, Fort Zumwalt West. You got Liberty Wentzville in this one, Timberland, Holt, Hickman, and Troy Buchanan. I think, Battle in Zumwalt North. I just don't see them moving on. But it just, the top teams are going to be that, West, Liberty, Timberland, Holt, Hickman, and Hickman's going to be no pushover in this one, right?
Hickman's the real deal. They got 2 big-time arms. It will not shock me at all to see them playing on the last day of this at all. And that when, Troy's a very good team. So I don't see any way that they'd be able to throw off. Troy is, you want to talk about a strong 6 seed. My goodness, Troy has got a really good team. So Hickman will have this bracket. There is no pushover game. Zumwalt West, you'd like to think, would have a situation there where they'll be okay in game 1, but Liberty and Battle, that'll be a decent game. Timberland and Holt, Holt is a 7. That's a good game, and then Hickman and Troy. So I think anyone could beat anyone in this, but obviously, as we talked about, depth will come into play, and who could actually win it. Zumwalt West is extremely deep. Timberland, they got some strong pitching and have been good all year. They're in our top 10. But Hickman has as good a 1-2 punch as anybody in here. They got, they will absolutely have a chance to make some noise in this. So this is going to be a fun one to watch.
And here's the thing: Holt has already put it on Timberland this year, so they really they know they can beat them. So I think
they won't be scared.
No, and that's the thing. I honestly think in this one, I think there's so many variables. I saw Liberty last week. They played well. They looked really good. But I just don't. I think you're going to see West and Hickman in that title game in this district. That's just what I think about this. Knowing what I saw early on, knowing what I've seen about some of these teams, I think you're just going to see West and Hickman. I think they are the top 2 teams in this district. My opinion, humble as I am. Yeah.
It's got to come down to, I think, like you said, anybody can beat anybody, but I don't think Liberty can get past Battle without throwing Victor. And then I don't know if they can get out of round 2 without Victor, assuming that Zumwalt West wins, obviously. So I don't see how West doesn't move to the end of the district. But the other side, you have Timberland, who you think Hatchman's probably throwing game 1, would be my guess.
It'll be interesting. They haven't used him as they have Justin Coleman, who's going to Lindenwood. Mm-hmm. They have Jackson Yarberry, who's done very well for them, and then they have Adam Hatchman. So they feel like they have 3 capable guys, and I agree with them. So it'll be interesting to see how they run those guys.
Yeah, they have Lawton and
Lawton. Yeah.
So they've got arms.
Well, the other thing with Liberty, I think their only chance is, and it's still kind of unknown. And I talked to Coach Clements last week about it. I saw him pitch. They had him on a 60-pitch count, but was the Caden Jacoby, I think is his. I know his last name. And he looked he looked a little rusty. He was up in the zone. He had good velocity though. They said he hit 92 a couple times. He's coming off Tommy John. Yeah.
Yeah. Caden Jacoby's a really good arm.
And so, but he's iffy. He's coming off that, surgery. So what is he going to bring to the table in that playoff? And I think that's a big if right there, too. They just don't know. And, he's got maybe a week and a half. Where's your pitch count with him if they get into that bullpen? They got some kids behind him, but I think Liberty, I think that's the biggest unknown is behind Victor Quinn there. Can Jacoby come back and be a number two in that? He's got the talent. He's got the ability. He's got all that, but can he do it? I think that's the biggest unknown there.
Yeah. Time shall tell.
Exactly.
We'll find out, right?
Exactly. So let's take a look. We'll finish up here with one. I want to look at Class 5. There's one Class 5 up.
I did get a bonus on Twitter. The CBC district is up, which is 6, and that is CBC is the 1 seed, DeSmet is the 2, Pattonville is the 3 seed, SLU High School is the 4, Kirkwood the 5, Hazelwood West the 6, Hazelwood Central the 7, and Rittner is the 8 seed. So that's another 6A that just came out literally within the past, half hour or so.
What district is that?
Boy, I'd be lying if I knew, but
it's District 2.
It's one of
District
the large
2?
schools.
Yeah, District 2, SLU's hosting. It's CBC, DeSmet, SLU, and then you have Pattonville, Rittner, Hazelwood West, Central, and Kirkwood.
Wow, that's going to be a tough one too.
I would say from the naked eye, you're probably looking at CBC being the heavy favorite, obviously, because they're number 1. But there's always the CBC DeSmet rivalry, so if they meet, it's kind of like a Cardinals-Cubs. Anybody can beat anybody, right?
And it's been they've been sitting on it for 2 years, but that is the defending state champion, the DeSmet Spartans. So it'll be
they are.
It will be interesting.
And CBC has been up and down this year. They have been. They kind of rode that roller coaster, So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I agree.
Yeah.
So let's take this last one look here. We have one Class 5. I think it was 4. I think that's out. No, I
6.
was wrong. 6.
Yeah. District 6, Class 5 with Webb City.
That's down in the southwest corner. Webb City's been playing pretty well. We haven't talked a lot about them, but they've been up in your rankings. Haven't in that small school area, correct? Or no.
They're still in our large school, but they're having a strong season. Carl Junction's a very good team down in Southwest Missouri as well. That'll be. They won't have far to travel if they make the state finals. Good news for them.
And looking at this, I was kind of perusing through. I don't know that much about that area. I don't. Glendale, they've been up and down. They're okay. They're having a decent season, but it looks like Webb City should come out of this bracket.
Webb City's extremely strong this year, and they would be the heavy favorites, I would say, in this one.
Yeah. So we're gonna hopefully see some more. We should have all the district seedings by next week, right?
You're probably on by Monday.
Yeah. So I think it'll be really good that way to next week. You don't want to miss it. We'll be talking districts. We'll do some predictions. We'll make Matt do all the predictions. So
it's fine. That's what I like to do. I'll do it. I mean, I can't get in trouble. Kevin can, but I'll be all right.
Yeah.
So, hey, as we're going into this, the large schools, of course, you had Zumwalt West up at number 1. Howell at number 2 just took a big loss against Edwardsville yesterday. Liberty North, Parkway West, Lafayette at 5. There's Park Hill there at 6. Liberty at 7. Kickapoo, another school we'll talk about when they get seated in their district. I think that's going to be an interesting one. We haven't talked a lot about Kickapoo. Timberland and Vianney rounding out that top 10. And then in the small schools, Blair Oaks, Kennett, Springfield Catholic, Westminster, that St. Pius. That's going to be, those are all really, really good baseball teams in that top 5.
Those are strong schools that can play with the large schools, and if you put them on the field, you wouldn't know the difference. Who's the large school? Who's the small school? Those are 5 really strong programs there.
And then rounding that out, Southern Boone, Aurora Hollister, Valley Catholic, and Saxony Lutheran. So that's your top 10, guys, large, small school from PBR, Missouri. Kevin, as always, appreciate you coming on, man. We've enjoyed that conversation. We hope you've enjoyed that, Matt. Any final thoughts going into these district rank or brackets?
We're getting down to the fun time of year. This is going to be an exciting time to watch these guys over the next month or so battle this thing out for the state championship.
Absolutely. We're going to follow it. We're going to pay attention. Kevin, if you want to follow Kevin, he's out at games and whatnot on his Instagram at PBR Missouri. So you want to follow him, and he's got updates on players and what's going on around. So make sure you're on Instagram. You can follow him at PBR Missouri. You can follow YBM at Youth Baseball Midwest. Thank you all for joining us today. We do appreciate it. Leave a comment, smash that subscribe button, hit the dinger, because that's what we do around here. We hit dingers because chicks dig the long ball. Anyway, everybody have a great day in the Lord, and all you pitchers, remember, keep throwing strikes, you hitters.
Hit them where they ain't.
Good advice. We'll see you next time.